Hey, welcome back to the Missouri Sports Network, MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. Brought to you by Central Bank of the Ozarks, Shelter Insurance Agent Grant Baker in Aurora, Doak Propane, Chevy Dealers of the Ozarks, Laborers Local 663, Great Southern Bank, Doak Propane, and the Bank of Billings. Certainly glad that you have tuned in. And as always, the Missouri State Highway Patrol reminds us to take that 3 seconds and buckle up. It's 3 seconds that could save your life. Be safe, be smart, and be here tomorrow. Continuing with our state championship talk, we go to Blair Oaks High School and head coach Sharon Buschjost. And Coach, state championship, congratulations.
Thank you. It feels really good, even a couple weeks later.
You bet. Coach, not unfamiliar to the state titles. You've had 12 Final Four appearances since 2000. Tell us a little bit about this team and its makeup and this, that getting through that districts and into that state championship game, which wasn't easy.
No, nothing was easy about it. But this team, I think consistency has kind of been the theme with this team all season. Played at a pretty high level throughout the season. The record kind of indicates that. We had a few games where, we didn't play our best, but just played at that level, that high level. And then I felt like everyone, for the most part, everyone settled into, their starting position, their batting order in the lineup. And we stuck with that for, much of the season, just with a few changes here and there. But, we have a little bit of speed, not a ton of team speed. So we added a few players, younger players, to kind of help out in that area. So there were games this season where, we may have started with the 9 players, but by the time it was all said and done, you might have seen about 15 players altogether. So I would just think the consistency was the theme, and just players performing at a pretty high level throughout.
Going into the semifinals, you take on a Sullivan team, you win 4-0. Then you've got to play a very good Chillicothe team. It's a 3-2 win. Then you also have the advent of Mother Nature gets involved with cold temperatures, the rain. Tell us about the challenges there and how you kind of kept your kids focused on the goal.
Well, it's hard for me to complain about the challenges we faced with the weather, because there were other teams that had much tougher weather to play in than we did. Our biggest thing was just, being flexible and patient, and understanding that the time, very well, and our game time was going to change, and did change several times. But it was more about just managing our time in the hotel, because we kind of kept our plans, as we had, and didn't change anything. So we had a little bit more hotel time, downtime than we planned on, but just filling that, we were able to secure a facility in Nixa, Missouri. Cy Sports, a shout out to them. They were great to work with. I wasn't expecting one phone call for that all to just fall into place. But that, and then, playing both games in one day, like I said, it was hard to complain, because the sun, I started to complain a bit about, man, that sun is bad. And I'm like, oh man, just be quiet, Sharon. This is great that we can even play. And then in that kind of weather. So Mother Nature did mess with teams, and I feel bad for those who had less than ideal conditions to play in for a state tournament. But it's tough. It's tough to make the perfect call in that situation.
Again, here on the Missouri Sports Network, visiting with Blair Oaks head softball coach, state champion, state softball coach Sharon Buschjost. And Coach, take us through that championship game. 3-2. It's a nail biter, could go either way. What are your thinking there, and how are you trying to keep the kids focused after what they've been through over the weekend?
That's a game that I don't know if I want to put myself back through some of that rehashing. It was a game of highs and lows. You get on the board first, which is so important. But Chillicothe had an answer for everything we did. So, up 1, then tied, up 1, and then just 1 out away in the top of the 7th, from finishing it off. And man, they are a great team, Chillicothe, and just made it, made it tough on us, and they tied it. So it's just, all games are a game of momentum and adrenaline and that. So we had to kind of rebound from that very quickly to be that close. But that's where being the home team in that situation and going into the bottom of the seventh and just thinking, man, if we could just finish this right now. And I'll tell you what, our leadoff batter, Kenzie Libbert, she just about did it with one swing. The softball gods were not with us on that particular hit. I mean, it literally was inches from going out. And she led off. She's our leadoff batter, and we just about had a walk-off home run. And it went from that to a base, a bunt single by Cadence Kleagle. And then they intentionally walked our number 3 batter and our pitcher, who's been a stud all year, Andy Siebenek. So it loaded the bases with nobody out, and didn't get the walk-off home run, but we got a walk-off walk to win the championship. So Macy Ernst came in to pinch hit for Anna Hampkins, who was out of the game, not by choice. We used 2 runners for her, so she was no longer eligible. So Macy came off the bench and had a great at bat and drew a walk. So I'm just, even talking about it now, just relieved that it ended in the bottom of the 7th.
Coach, talk a little bit about the makeup of your team. What are you going to lose off of this team senior wise, and who's going to have to step up and replace some of those?
Well, all 3 spots in the outfield were filled by seniors. So our entire outfield will be a new look. Andy Siebenek in the circle, a senior, and she's had a great 4 years, great career, Blair Oaks softball, and we'll miss her. And then we've got our second baseman, Cadence Kleagle, who's been the starting second baseman since her sophomore year. And then our 6th senior, Macy Ernst, she's mainly been, we've used her bat. That's been her main contribution to the team, over the course of the last several years. Definitely powerful swing. So every player will be missed in a big way. But that question is posed to me often at the end of a season, but I am very grateful and lucky to be coaching at Blair Oaks, because we always have players who have been waiting patiently for their turn and ready to take over. But sometimes that's easier said than done, because when you're looking at somebody, like an Andy Siebenek with leading your team with, I think what is like 40 RBIs, 43 RBIs, you start to think, okay, who's going to fill that? Who's going to take over that spot? Who's going to take over, this? Who's going to take over that? So had the same questions last year, the year before, and it just seems to happen. So that's why I say I'm lucky.
Yeah, well, it takes a little bit of talent to be as lucky as you've been with 500 wins. You picked up your 500th career win this past season. Tell us a little bit about your background. How long have you been at Blair Oaks? Where did you go to high school, college, and just kind of where you cut your teeth, so to speak? And do you remember win number 1?
Well, I can say yes to remembering win number 1, because my superintendent, who is a huge fan and had 4 daughters play softball that I coached, he was for the 500th win. He was wanting to say a little bit. He wanted me to look up where that first win came from. Great coach at Vienna, Mick Bird, who, won state himself last year, I believe, and is retired. But the first win came against Vienna a long, long time ago. This is my 26th year coaching at Blair Oaks. I think what makes it extra special for me is I'm a 1983 graduate of Blair Oaks. So to be able to, and my entire family, I'm from a large family, and all of us went to Blair Oaks. So it's kind of you talk about bleeding green. It definitely holds true for me. So being able to coach at Blair Oaks and just, coaching great players, having great family support, that's to me, what makes it extra special. Not everything is easy about it, but you're not going to have I don't know if there's ever a season that, that isn't without its challenges. But over the years, I can't complain. anytime there's been a difficult situation, I felt like it's been handled, the parents have been professional in how they address it and handle it. And it just makes it, it makes it easier and something to be proud of.
Who in your background has influenced you with regards to your coaching? Is it someone you played for? Is it someone maybe you assistant coach for? Who's been, a couple of those folks have been big influences in your career?
Well, I played, I love sports in high school. I even played volleyball. We did that kind of in the same season back in the day, but I wasn't great at volleyball, but I liked playing it. It was a sport, so I liked it. Loved basketball, and I say sometimes basketball may have been, as a player in high school, my true passion. I would have loved to play that in college. I did play for Central Missouri State University, UCM, played a couple years there, but and that was a great opportunity. But it's, just about any coach I've ever had, whether it be a softball coach or a basketball coach, I know Mark Buffington was a basketball coach that I had in high school, and Mary Beth Oshner was one of the first coaches at Blair Oaks High School. Vic Cadici, Fred Fork. I go back to when I was a kid and playing, Teresa Dorge and, Jane Shell. All those are their maiden names, of course, but, and then my family was big sports fans. So I'm sure I left a lot of important people out there, but it's just pretty much, I had a lot of respect for any coach that I ever had. And I've had the same assistant coach. This next year will be her 20th year with me. I've had a number of them, but anytime you can hang on to an assistant coach, committed to the program. I coached her my first year. She was a junior, so I coached her as a player. So we've been together coaching for quite a while. So that in itself, I think, I'm kind of, she gives me a little bit of inspiration there, and we have fun.
You bet. Again, visiting with Sharon Buschjost, the head coach of Blair Oaks softball program, state champion. Coach, you mentioned, 26 years. If you could go back, the 2021, Coach Buschjost could go back to that 1995 or 96 first year coach, what advice would you give yourself?
I think just, keep in mind, and this is something I've tried to keep with me for a long time, but I don't know if I would have thought about this my first year. Just remember, it's every player and parents, their 4 years there in high school, are some of the most important years for them. You can't get caught up in what year it is for me personally. In the big picture, that doesn't matter. It's either everyone's first year in high school and experiencing high school softball, it's their second, it's their third, or it's their fourth, their senior. So just keeping a perspective on that, I think that's what I would tell myself, is make sure you don't get too wrapped up, in numbers or in that. And luckily I don't remember anything. So just naturally, I'm not a numbers person. And just, this is still hard to do, but don't take things personally. Do your best, treat everyone fairly, or put yourself in the player's position, put yourself in the player's parents' position, and try to make decisions, what would be best for that scenario. I haven't always been as successful as, I always feel like I try to do that, but it's hard to make everyone happy when you're, we had 19 on our team this year, once about halfway or some point through the season, maybe halfway, you can add some players, but, don't be too hard on yourself is probably what I would tell my young self, because I feel like I am.
All right. Very good. Well, again, on behalf of the Missouri Sports Network, congratulations on the state championship and your 500th victory. And I know this took a few days to kind of set up, but I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you have as well.
I have, Guy, and I appreciate your effort in sticking with me and finding a time that worked. I really appreciate it. And thanks for giving me the time today.
You bet. You're listening to the Missouri Sports Network at MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage.